Hello, hello, welcome to Data Den. This is the third edition and I'm really excited. I have something rarer than rocking horse poop with me today. It is 4 of the 5 Proctopus guys. So I'm really excited. I will bring them on one by one and we will talk about all things procurement and Proctopus and events and networking. So if you have any questions for the guys, why not put them in the comments and we will try and answer as many questions as we can. So I hope you are enjoying your January. It's Blue Monday today, so hopefully it will not be too blue on the show for you. Hopefully we can cheer you up and get you having a wee laugh. I would like to bring on my first guest, which is Mr. Oliver Mountain. So hello to you. How are you?
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, not so bad. Feeling a bit blue on a Blue Monday, but yeah, I've really been looking forward to this. Loads to talk about.
I'm sure it's not Blue Monday, especially when you've got so much activity anyway.
Well, that is true.
Make people laugh. So, which is good. It's a key characteristic for January is laughing and humour. So
yeah, that is true. So tell us a little bit about yourselves. Apart from being Proctopus, who are you as a person?
Wow.
As an individual.
As an individual, wow,
yeah.
that's a grand question for a January, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really deep.
So, well, I'm a procurement consultant. First and foremost. I try and make people laugh with my procurement analogies as well. So a lot of clients know that I'm always around, generally why people are laughing. So that's good. Generally, I specialize in IT procurement and also real estate, facilities and construction. So those are the two things that I specialize in. And then I have a deep passion for third-party risk management as well. So,
okay.
Yeah, I know.
Well, actually, I'll get some stories out of you later, and you can change my mind.
That's good.
Cool. Oh, thanks so much for coming on today. It's really great.
That's good. It's brilliant.
Which, brings me on to guest number 2, Mr. Dave Jones.
Woo! Hello. How are we doing?
Yeah, not bad. How about you?
Really good, thank you. Really good. It's quite grey outside. Pretty much the highlight of my day. So thanks.
Miserable, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
miserable. Good old chat.
Definitely.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, what's a bit about myself? I'm a dad of twins. That's something that not everyone knows. So currently juggling homeschooling and doing my day job and all that kind of stuff.
I've got lots of questions on twins, actually. We'll come to that later.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And do you specialise in any specific type of procurement, or are you an all-rounder?
I do all areas of indirect procurement, so overheads, but particularly specialise in IT and technology. Currently working for John Lewis, spent quite a few years with them, and about to leave, which is exciting. And I do have something lined up as well, but I haven't signed on the dotted line yet. So
you know what? That is the best news. That has made my day. I am so pleased.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
So I'll let you know as soon as I've actually signed the contract. But I'm
brilliant. And what we'll do is once everyone's on, we'll cover off, directs and indirects, because I've got a huge audience, so not everyone's procurement. So it'd be good. And actually, even me, I sit somewhere in the middle, so I can blag it through procurement talk. But yeah, it's always good to just take people through it. I found at eWorld exhibitions, I have had procurement people walk by when I've asked them about taxonomies. They've looked at me with a blank stare, like, "What's that? I don't know what that is." So I was like, okay, so maybe not everybody knows as much as I think they do. So.
Wow.
Then we shall bring on guest number 3, Mr. James Meeks. Not on the ski slope today. Thank you for that.
I'm not, no. And it's been a beautiful bluebird day, but it's been very, very cold as well. And unfortunately,
off as quickly as I can bring you on.
We have to work at some point as well as have fun, don't we? So no, I spent Friday on the slopes, but then as a result, I spent most of yesterday working and certainly all of today as well. So it's not as glamorous as it looks, although it's very nice to have that for the winter on my back, outside my back door at the moment.
Yeah, and in terms of what you're doing, tell everyone about what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm a procurement pro as well, mainly in the indirect space, and I seem to have the experience in the sort of categories that no one seems to want to bring people on to do at the moment. So I'm not an IT or public sector expert. So I, at the moment, am putting on a virtual trade fair together with a procurement startup, which is going to happen on the 17th of February. So that's keeping me extremely busy over the next few weeks. And at the same time, I'm also obviously then at the looking to build out what I'm doing on the consultancy side, but also as a passion project for this year, I want to grow a local procurement network out here where I live in Southeast Europe, because there isn't a SIPS or anything like that out here. So it's really trying to mix together a lot of the networking opportunities that organizations like SIPS bring, but at the same time trying to bring some fun aspects into it, similar to the tech and startup scene, how they manage to carry it off into what is quite a conservative industry at the end of the day. So definitely plenty to be keeping busy with.
Great. Well, we'll ask you more about your event in a minute, but we will bring on our final guest, Mr. Keith McAbe.
Hello. How are we?
So that you can
just about in. Yeah, there we go. How are we? I'm very excited, Susan. I've not been out of the house all day, so this is my first trip out, and I'm in your den. This is very exciting.
Yeah,
I know.
I think this is the first sort of live production we've done this year, I think, between us all. So,
I'm very honoured.
Yeah.
But I think I should start sending out backgrounds to people as well. So
Say again.
I should start sending out backgrounds to people. So that
I know mine's quite dull, isn't it, in comparison to your spangly one? So it's not good enough. Not good enough. Never mind.
Yeah, mine's very dull. I'll have. We should all be unicorns or something next time. Something at least.
We're not on Zoom. Zoom's got a good unicorn kind of thing that you can do now. So Keith, who are you? What are you doing?
Yeah, hi. So I am also. I haven't got twins, but I'm a dad of two, so I'm also juggling homeschool at the moment, which is fun. Was one word for it. But yeah, I'm a procurement consultant. I run a company called AVAM Solutions. Been in procurement for about 20 something years. Been working for AVAM for a year and a half now. And really got some great clients at the moment. Currently working with, amongst others, AstraZeneca. So
pretty cool.
Like to think I'm saving the world at the moment, but
it's
a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I guess that's a good question to start with, because most of you are consultants. So how have you found things, like as a business owner over the last few months or year? How's things going?
Who's going to take that one?
I think it's been challenging. I think from kind of February, March time, it was very challenging. I suppose it was one of the reasons why we found Proctopus really was to sort of help people really in these challenging times. So I think everyone's pivoted quite a lot, really, to sort of gain new ways of working, new clients. So I think it's been really good, and a bit of solidarity in the formation of Proctopus and helping others as well, which I personally gained a lot from, and meeting Dave, James, Keith, and Graham, who can't be with us today, has been great. And I know that every one of the Proctopus founders has helped other people as well. So
on the other side.
What about poor old James and Susan? You didn't mention meeting them.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
I did say James, and sorry, and Susan. Obviously, that's given, isn't it? Sorry,
yeah. Just kidding. But actually, on the other side, as someone on the other side, I would like to say thank you, because actually you've made procurement a lot more fun, and built this amazing network and community. My only other really networking experiences have been, I guess, in real life. One is eWorld, and I went to one SIPS event, which are very formal and a bit dry, if I'm honest. eWorld's good fun, but it's still business, whereas this is just, you come along and you chat, and you don't even have to chat about anything procurement. You just get to be with other people who know what's going on in your industry and what they're going through. So on behalf of everyone, I'd like to say thank you for that.
That's great. That was always the aim, really. I mean, I'm a bit like you in the sense that I've always hated networking. So the idea of setting up a kind of a network is, I'm the least likely person to be involved in that.
You don't want that whole, elevator pitch.
No, and I think we've always tried to, get that balance between, obviously, we want it to be loosely themed around procurement stuff, and I think there's quite a lot of value that hopefully, comes out of some of the things we do, but also quite a bit of fun with a bit of luck, because we just don't want it to be that kind of dry environment that you just mentioned. Yeah.
And actually, that's the great thing about Proctopus, is there's lots of tentacles. So, there's Procmeet, Proclive, there's the Proctocast. So, there's really something for everyone in there.
Yeah, and we're hoping to bring more on as we grow as well. I mean, it's fun. We had a meeting about this earlier, really, and without sort of sharing anything that we're not ready to announce yet. There are other aspects that we want to grow and support as we expand, and it's really just a case of nailing that down and saying, okay, what do we want to do first? Because we've got limited resources. We've all got to pay our bills somehow, as well as sort of growing Proctopus as a community. But we definitely don't want to stand still.
Yeah. So do you want to tell us a bit more about, what's the difference between Procmeet and Proclive? Because, they're both great events, but both very different.
So Procmeet's coming up this Thursday, actually, 5 o'clock UK time. Procmeet has a slight edge over Proclive, Keith, I think you'll agree, but they're both brilliant in their own ways. But Procmeet is kind of informal networking. People join the sessions and move into small breakout rooms and have quite casual conversations with each other. And Proclive is free consultancy, basically, for anyone in the world to ask questions of Keith, Oliver and Graham, who normally charge about $4,000 a day for their time. So it's really, really good value.
Yeah.
Because they don't charge anything at all for people to be on there. And those are the main differences. Do you want to add anything, Keith, Oliver?
No, not a huge amount. I think you covered it quite well. I mean, I think we are trying to get maybe a few more voices this year on the Proclive group, so it won't just be Ollie and Graham and myself this year. We're going to try and mix it up a little bit, but yeah, that's what it's about. It's about conversation, questions and answers. And it's another LinkedIn Live. So unlike the Procmeet, which is a Zoom, this is another LinkedIn Live event currently, like what you're doing, Susan. So
great. I can see Mr. Stroops is saying hello. So hello. He's a Procmeet regular, and also won was it most tenacious job hunter of the year at the Proctopus Award. So yeah. And actually, just thinking about, we were talking about like business and consultants and how they've found it over the last year. But Dave, you've been looking for a new job. So how have you found that?
It's been challenging, I would say. Most of my leads have come from my network on LinkedIn, rather than direct applications to jobs. So it's been people I've worked with before. recruitment, people I've met online, people I've spoken to personally. So direct applications I haven't had a lot of joy from so far. And think my main advice to anyone who's on here who is looking is focus really on your existing network. Reach out to people, have conversations, and grow your own network. I mean, my network has gone from, I reckon, about 1,000. Well, no, less than 1,000 in March to now 5,000.
That's fantastic.
Keith and Susan, LinkedIn celebrities, over 10,000. I'm not at your standard yet, but peaking.
Just a matter of quality, not quantity, I always say. So, for me, I don't think I won't get the huge numbers because I'm pretty niche. So, but as long as the right people are watching, I'm happy.
And they certainly are. You've got a really, really strong network, Susan, and Keith, you do as well, actually. So it's really powerful.
That's great to hear and encouraging for other people who might be looking for work at the moment as well. Would you say you might need to be a bit more flexible on what you are or are not willing to do, or have you managed to keep your kind of list of must-haves?
Certainly, flexibility is really key. I mean, I'm seeing more temporary assignments available, either fixed term contracts from an employment perspective, or contracting gigs. The permanent roles, in my experience, aren't as fruitful as they used to be. So going on an interim contract level is one compromise. But equally, it could be a real positive because it could lead to a lot more variety and focus.
Yeah, I think you never know. I've met a lot of people over the years who have been at companies for a long time, and they say, I was only supposed to be here 4 weeks. So you never know what kind of doors can open. Yeah. Definitely worth it. So let's get back to actually procurement. So, for anyone who doesn't know, what is procurement? Because my dad might be watching. So yeah, please explain it to him.
Who wants to take this one? Keith, do you want to explain the glorious world of procurement?
I was hoping to dodge this question. I'm not sure I know the answer after 25 years or whatever it is. I mean, I think it can mean a lot of things to different people. So I think
Okay, so let's do each of you. How would each of you describe it?
So I would describe it as a cycle of activities that you do. So there's elements within it. So there's a buying element within it, and there's a kind of a negotiation element within it, and there's a post-contract award element within it. But it's all the same thing. So it's all part of a cycle, really, in my opinion. So procurement is basically the whole process that you go through, from kind of figuring out that you need to buy something, to going through the process and figuring out who's going to provide it, and then working out how to get best value out of it once you got it. So quite a wide-ranging thing, but certainly not just the transactional bit of buying it halfway through.
Great. How about you, Dave?
I think procurement, as a term, I don't have a new name for it, but I think it's almost becoming extinct as a term. So procurement, as we traditionally know it, a lot of that will be automated in the future. So something like is, for me, it's becoming more about value chain orchestration. I know that sounds quite a big word, but it's
fancy.
But it's orchestrating value for the organisation, sitting at the centre of a spider's web. A lot of cheesy phrases, but procurement sits at the centre of this web of relationships internally and externally. And I agree with all that Keith said. But I'd love us to come up with a new name for procurement that's encompasses more than procuring stuff. Yeah,
I've seen a lot of posts around that, and I haven't seen anything that I've thought, yes, this is it so far.
No one's come up with anything, have they? So
no.
I think value orchestration is absolutely the best term I've heard in a long time, Dave. I like that one. Add that with risk minimization, value orchestration, and risk minimization. I like that.
Well, I meant value orchestration, cards on the table. was a term from Detlev Schultz in an article the other day on the future of procurement. So I'm going to, anyone who doesn't follow, anyone should follow Detlev Schultz. He's one of the most inspirational procurement directors I've worked with. So it was one of the articles. So, James,
how about you?
Yeah, I would completely agree with Dave and Ollie. Actually, I think value orchestration from the at the very beginning of the cycle, from when you're going out and looking at sourcing something, right the way through to, after you've agreed on where you're going to buy it from, whether that be a one-time purchase or a 5-year multi-million or billion pound, euro, dollar contract, it's extracting value from that relationship throughout the whole cycle. So yeah, I completely agree. And I think I echo Dave and Ollie's comments that the sooner we take the conversation away from just delivering savings and more about value, because those conversations are happening, but the reality is, what are most procurement professionals measured on? And then what ultimately ends up being their priority, because that's what they get their pay rises or promotions based off the back of. So I think that will only change when the target setting changes, because any other conversation or sort of nice to have objectives are just that until they become set in hard objectives.
Yeah. Ollie?
Yeah, I think procurement has pivoted quite a bit actually in the last 18 months from, in terms of its just, creation of, procuring the right supplier to procure goods and services for the right price, right, or value point. I think it's expanded quite a bit really to take Keith's element of it. You need to look at sort of the supplier management and the risk management side. So I think it's more about, and I like Dave's term, value orchestration really across the whole process. And it would be nice to see if procurement did have a different name that sort of had a slightly higher image in in the organization. So if you are senior value curator as opposed to senior procurement manager, for example, I think value curator sounds more glamorous than procurement manager. So
yeah, but also a bit, I don't know.
Sounds a bit made up though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It is. It is. I wish we could come up with a new name. Anyone got any good names maybe that they could share with us in the comments?
Yeah, the chat will know. That's a good point.
Let's know what your ideas are. Got a question here from Ed. He has flirted with procurement from a data perspective, just like me. And I can agree, it's definitely full of surprises. But have you guys been involved at all in the last 12 months with any COVID-related procurement stories? Heard anything like from the sublime to the ridiculous? Or have you been sold? Tried to have people try and sell to you? Because I get emails about that still.
I think we've all heard the stories about the at pace public procurement awards that in hindsight look a bit dodgy. I haven't personally been involved in any public procurement for quite a while actually, but I mean there's certainly that side of things that's come out of the procurement world during the COVID period, because it's procurement. To be honest, I don't think procurement has been in the news as much as it has over the past 12 months. But not all of it is for good reasons, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of. I think when anyone ever does something quickly, there's always a risk that it's going to not go as well as planned, really. But just the kind of the way it is, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll come on to buying stories later again. But just to quickly touch on what I was talking about before, the difference between direct and indirect procurement. So from a layman's point of view, for me, it's direct is the stuff that goes into making the product or service, and then indirect is everything like basically to run the business. I guess that's my kind of understanding of it. But it would be nice to have something a bit more technical than that as an explanation.
I don't think there is anything more technical than that. I think that's the right answer.
So okay, so like if you're a manufacturer, your direct stuff might be things like nuts, bolts, and screws for the machine to make stuff, or ingredients for the products, like if it's food. But then your indirects might be things like rent and electricity, cleaning for your buildings, consultancy services like us. That's kind of your basics there.
Yeah. If it goes into the thing you sell. Sorry, James.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, maintenance, transport on top of that, any sort of professional service. Yeah, CapEx. That's all sort of indirect. Energy. It's all considered indirect. Yeah. Yeah,
actually, one of my favorite things to classify is travel, because there's so much crazy stuff in there that people get away with putting through expenses. It's yeah, I love it. Anyway, Eddie's got a question for us as well. Eddie McGeeky. What would your ideal operating model for procurement be? So, first of all, how many different models are there, and what are they? Because that's a completely foreign thing to me.
Well, we could start with centralized versus decentralized. So centralized is there's a central procurement team that controls all the spend for the business. It has oversight of all the spend in the business and approves it all, and it all goes through that team. Decentralized is the business, i.e. the budget owners, control the spend, and there's very small procurement oversight centrally. And for me, the ideal model is, without meaning to sit on the fence, somewhere between the two, because you shouldn't have procurement controlling everything in their ivory tower, because that would just annoy the business. But the business equally should have that procurement expertise.
Yeah.
I think
that's a good way of thinking about it.
I mean, then you've got a centralized procurement team that manages or deals with the major contracts, and then your regional team may place things that are more specialist for that region as well, so that you've got sort of centralized, decentralized, and then you also then need to think about the supplier management piece. Is that done by the business owner, or is that done by a centralized team or decentralized team, depending on where it is? So there are lots of different models out there, for the want of better wording. Some companies, because they're very big, say actually contracts above a certain value are dealt with by a strategic sourcing team. Others are dealt with a tactical team. I think really depends on the scope and scale of the business.
I'm going to use this as like a learning session for me as well. Just ask the stupid no questions stupid, but I'm going to ask the questions that I normally wonder about, because I've kind of figured out a lot of it myself just by listening to people. But so strategic spend there's like the high value stuff, as far as I understand. Is that right? Or
not always, I would say. I mean, it often is, but it's the stuff that matters to the organisation. So maybe to build on Ollie's point earlier, it could be the stuff that carries the most risk, or it could be the highest spend, or the stuff that really matters is often linked to the stuff that gives you the competitive edge. So, if you are a manufacturer of biscuits, then the ingredients for those biscuits would be quite strategic. If you are a manufacturer of cars, then if you did have any spend that didn't relate directly to the cars, it probably it would be more likely to be a tactical category. So it tends to just be a mix of value and risk, I would say.
So back in the day, there was when I was at Vodafone, you all remember the prepaid. Remember when you had prepaid phones and they scratched? Yeah. you had to get these scratch cards from news agents and scratch off to get a top up. Well, it turned out there was an individual contractor that wrote that. We've got a bit of echoing. Is that me? Everyone else, can you get echo on your side?
Hello. No, I'm okay.
Okay.
I think it might be.
I can hear you. Yeah, there's a bit of echo.
Yeah.
All right. So apologies. So it turned out that there was a individual contractor owned the whole prepay system for Vodafone UK, and then whilst the spend was very low, 60 grand a year, and that was a really critical system for the organisation.
Yeah.
So it's just building on Keith's point, and people were quite amazed that all of the prepaid business for Vodafone went through the sort of one-man company.
Yeah.
No offense to one-man band contractors. There's a few on the call, but
yeah, but it's risky. I mean, we were just talking about this before we came on air. Like, from me as a business, I don't want to have all my eggs in one basket in terms of suppliers, because if I lose one, then that's everything for me. And okay, it's just me, but it's still a big deal. But does the organisation size influence the model choice? Ed is asking.
Yeah, I think it does. Depends on obviously the size that we're talking about. You know, there's probably not a great deal of difference between a 5 million, a billion business and a 50 billion pound or euro business. But if you're talking the difference between a major multinational corporation and 20 million or 50 million pound or euro enterprise that maybe has 2 or 3 production sites, then the argument between having a corporate procurement department or a decentralized organization is probably irrelevant. So then more of your topic's going to be around, okay, if procurement is representing or if spend on goods and services from external suppliers is representing circa 60-70% of the organization's turnover, just like you wouldn't let an HR manager or a maintenance technician go out and sell your product to a potential customer, they shouldn't be negotiating with suppliers as well. So while they may manage, the day-to-day operational relationship with said vendor, they shouldn't be negotiating commercial conditions with them. So I think then when you get into SMEs, it's more around one of two approaches. You either give those people who through necessity are having to negotiate commercially the skills to do basic negotiations and understand T&Cs and contracts to a level where they're not dangerous to what they're doing to the business, or you need to take your procurement function away from being a more administrative purchase order, effectively being the plant manager's glorified admin assistant type of function, to be a much more skilled strategic setup. So I think it does matter what the size of the business is, but only when you're playing towards the lower end. I think once you get into corporation type status, sort of 1 billion and upwards, just talking very, very loosely, then I don't think it makes a huge difference in size, although obviously with size usually comes complexity.
Yeah.
I think geographical spread, type of commodities that you're looking for, sort of how mature they are generally as well. There's a lot of key factors really in this as well. So I think it's quite difficult to
case by case rather than black and white.
Yeah.
As are more things. And actually, Joy's got a great question. Thank you. What advice do you have for those of us in procurement roles that operate in a centralized or decentralized model or structure and issues that relate directly to data availability and quality? So I'll be interested to hear your point of view, because from my side, I find that procurement the clients that come to me are kind of doing their own thing separate to the rest of the organization. So they might get the data from finance or master data, but it's not embedded in the centralized systems. They're taking their spreadsheets and doing their own thing because they can't get what they need from the rest of the organization. So I don't know if that's your experience or whether you've got a better kind of...
On this one, I would say I've got two answers. So one is a kind of an idealistic answer, and one is a practical one.
Yeah.
So clearly, ideally, you want to have good access to data, and we all know the old maxims about rubbish in and rubbish out, and you'll know that better than anyone, Susan. So preaching to the choir there, but in an ideal world, that's obviously what you want, and that's what you need in order to do your job well. Practically, it's rarely the case. I think I've been fortunate to work for big companies and small companies, and it's a myth to think that big companies have got this sorted out. They really haven't, and in fact, it's often worse.
Yeah.
The way I've always had to deal with it, and this is just from a pragmatic perspective, because at the end of the day, you've got to get the job done, is to take the data that they've got, but then take the data from suppliers, take the data that people might be maintaining sort of offline, take the data from market reports, take data from all over the place, and then kind of form an aggregated position and an informed view as to what the real truth is. Because it's simply if I've ever relied on one source, it's just not been accurate enough. But by getting that kind of balanced view from different sources, I think you do get a kind of a generally good position on where you're at.
And I think just to add to that, Keith, you touched on most of the points there, but I do think that not only with data as in master data, but also with spend data, size of organization, or decentralized teams or businesses that have grown a lot through acquisition tend to have really poor data because they don't have that push to aggregate things centrally, and they've often got multiple ERP systems. Whereas, again, going back to the SME model, if you're a £50 million or euro business with 2 or 3 production sites and the same ERP system, convincing a CFO to invest in cleaning data doesn't require a board level decision or 10 steps of bureaucracy. If that's a privately owned company and they can see longer term the advantage of what it will do as an enabler, as a facilitator, it can often be easier, even though they may not have the resources to spend on consultancy. The size of the problem is usually smaller.
Yeah, I don't think there's, again, one right answer for this. I think it depends on the situation, but all I know is there's a lot of dirty data out there, and I'm fixing a lot of it right now, so I'm not complaining.
It keeps you in a job, doesn't it, Susan?
It frustrates me so much because companies are missold this dream ideal that you buy the software and it'll fix everything. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen. So I'm there on the other side, or it becomes too intimidating for an organization to actually implement anything because all the software is so expensive and technical, and so a really great entry point is just to manually classify your data, whether it's me or someone else or your own team, and just get to grips with it before you do anything else with it, and it'll make your life a lot easier.
I think if we look at
sorry. Yeah. No, on you go.
I was just going to say, if we look at some of the most successful businesses in the world at the moment, a lot of them are powered by data.
Yeah.
Amazon is a good example. Google, Uber, Just Eat, Deliveroo. It's all data. So my advice to anyone early in their career is really understand data. You don't necessarily need to be a detailed data scientist.
No.
But if you want to have a really, really successful procurement career, you've got to know what data science is, ask the right questions to get the right data.
I'm living proof of that. So, yeah.
Data is a massive competitive advantage now, much more than it was before.
I find myself having to say quite a lot that, data is an investment. It's not a cost. It's changing that mindset.
Yeah.
But actually, something that's, again, brought that to light and a lot of gaps in people's data is like remote working and things like that. So Martin's asking if you guys think that when there are more roles available that they're going to be home-based now.
Yeah, I really do. I think from the perspective of somebody who has been trying to find clients over the past year, one of the benefits of the situation has been that location really hasn't been as much of a factor.
Yeah.
And that's been an opportunity for somebody like me, because I live in the northwest, and a lot of the opportunities are kind of in London and the southeast. And it's meant that I've been able to win business that I probably wouldn't otherwise have been, because there may have been an expectation that I'd have to be in a different part of the country on a regular basis during the week, which isn't practical. And so I think it's inevitable that companies will take the advantage that this has brought, really, and just carry that on after things settle.
I think,
and they'll save a lot of money, apart from anything else. So it'd be good for the employee, but also good for the company, because of the associated benefit from real estate. So I think it's an obvious move, really.
I think I've had a much better relationship with one of my clients because we were on meetings 2, 3, 4 times a week in Zoom, whereas that just wouldn't have happened in real life. So I know them much better than, and having that great relationship has really helped kind of drive the project forward as well. And on the flip side, I've got a lot more business from the US now than I probably ever would have before, because I don't have to be there.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm a little bit more pessimistic on this. I think as a business owner, I'm not too worried about it, because I think as a business owner, if I'm quoting a piece of work, it's based on a value proposition. If I'm talking about pure play interim contract roles or full-time employment, I don't think the industry is moving as fast as it needs to. And I think the procurement and supply chain industry does need to wake up and realize that they're 10 years behind the tech industry here. You see a lot of roles saying remote until COVID's over, then based in the office, or a lot of them saying remote 2 days a week, but expected to commute into location X. Now, while I get that that's a step in the right direction, if COVID has proven that we don't really need to be in the office, other than we're social creatures and we like to have interaction, then why can't a traditionally UK-based or Germany-based or wherever-based procurement role be done somewhere that is in the same time zone? I understand from a time zone perspective why you need to be in a broadly similar geographical location as your peers to some extent, but I don't see why. Is it really any different for someone located in the north of England to commute to London a couple of days a week than it is for someone located in a major European city that can just hop on a plane first thing in the morning and then fly back in the evening 2 days later, when they've done their weekly or bi-weekly or monthly meetings that necessitate that? So I see us moving in the right direction, but way too slowly.
Great. Had a really good question. I am not sure who it's from because I can't see, but what is the difference between procurement and purchasing? Because people assume it's the same thing, but it's worlds apart.
Yes. It's an age-old thing, is this one, definitely. So
purchasing to me seems a bit outdated. It's like you don't really hear about purchasing that much anymore. Do you?
It's a terminology thing, but traditionally there's a difference between procurement being obviously the placing of contracts with suppliers and sort of now encapsulates kind of supplier management, risk management as well. Whereas purchasing was traditionally seen as the placing of orders with suppliers, in terms of the transactional side of raising a requisition, a purchase order, and then basically chasing fulfillment of that order as well. Now, again, that's a bit of an old school thing, because some companies call purchasing, what they actually mean is procurement. And purchasing, you know, traditionally. So there's a bit of a mix and match there. But it's an interesting one because it's an age-old discussion. Maybe I'm getting a bit old, really. A few grey hairs now, you know. So, what's your guys' thoughts?
I don't like either of the names, hence the need for a new name. And buying is another name that I don't like.
Yeah.
So it's
category management. I've seen category management mentioned a bit in the comments here. That's often used by companies nowadays, isn't it, Dave?
So that's interesting because my background was FMCG and selling into retailers. So category managers were like building planograms and that kind of stuff. So in my mind, that's category management, but it's very much different in the procurement world, obviously.
Yeah. No, the same. I've had experience when I was in FMCG. Category manager's been exactly that, and then you know, a few years later, I came across it more in the kind of procurement and supply chain space. And but yeah, I mean, I guarantee if you got 10 people in a room and asked them to define, you know, procurement, purchasing, category management, they'd all come up with different responses. So it's one of those questions. There's no one answer to this.
Yeah, really good reason to define your terminology within an organization, like especially like data classification. If I'm categorizing category management, is it going to be my interpretation of it or someone else's? So yeah, really good idea to get clear. Even things like customers and suppliers can mean different things to different people. So
yeah, I'd say I've seen a question from Steve Brown actually, which I think is really interesting. Remote working makes stakeholder management more difficult, but no less important. Right? I have to say I totally agree with Steve on this one. Normally, obviously, if we were in pre-COVID, you would actually be meeting quite a lot of your stakeholders, you know, face to face before you then engage with them in terms of a Zoom or a Teams fashion, or more of a remote situation. So you've built that rapport and stuff. And I think actually he's right. It's difficult to build rapport remotely when you haven't actually necessarily met those people. It's quite difficult to do that. But I think it's, to take your point, Susan, though, is it is easier to have better access to them now as well. So there's kind of pros and cons to this.
Yeah, I guess, well, I mean, I try to get everybody on my side. I kind of drop jokes, and, you know, the client also, I was working with a consultancy, you know, they're like deadpan, straight-laced, and I've even got them like cracking jokes on the calls now. So, you know, sometimes I think it depends on who's there and the personality types. So yeah, it's not always that easy. But let's see, what else have we got? There's a whole load of discussion going on in the chat. This is great. Let's talk about things you've bought, or weird things you've bought, or when buying has gone wrong. Because I know, Keith, you've covered this on one of your Sunday night shows before, and I really love the topic because it just shows that, you know, the stupidity of some people, quite frankly, are not thinking ahead. You know, like the you know, someone, was it the vending machine someone ordered and there was no lift to get it up the stairs? Or, you know,
I can't remember who that was now, but yeah.
You
it
know,
might have been Graham actually.
There was a very famous one where someone had ordered some fire and rescue vehicles and hadn't measured the height of the garage, so actually the vehicles were too high to get into the garage. Stuff like that occurs.
I love that kind of stuff. You know, we all need stories like that to keep us going. Yeah,
definitely. I think the poshest thing I've ever had the opportunity to buy was I did a short contract for one of the top end football clubs, and they wanted a pool of cars for their football players. which was really quite cool.
Wow.
So I quite like that. So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah.
In my 20s, I was buying the company car for our CEO, and he was a bit up himself, the chief exec, so he had a chauffeur as well, and I had a laugh with the chauffeur and had a word with him, and I got him to chauffeur drive me around all the dealerships.
I was going to say, did you get to test drive?
Brilliant.
When I was 26. So I turned up to Mercedes, BMW, Ferrari, and we pull up right at the door, and he'd open the door and go, "Mr. Jones, how you get?"
Amazing.
And all these car sales guys would look at me and go, "Who's this guy?" It was such a laugh. That's the most.
Yes.
Such a laugh.
Anyone else? Keith, James, anything you want to share?
I've not bought anything that exciting. I've been to some pretty exciting places though. Doing procurement in Nigeria was certainly an experience.
I mean, it must be like a whole different cultural way of doing business and everything, is it?
Yeah, it is. It's weird. Some of them, that culturally they're a very, very welcoming people, and they really want you, despite all the challenges that the country has, they really, really want you to have a good time when you're there. And they're always really keen to talk to you because they want to learn from you. But on about my second or third day, I went into the plant, and one of these Nigerian guys comes up to me and says, "Hello, James, how was your night?" And that in Nigerian is basically, "How are you doing? You know, did you sleep okay? Is everything all right?" But I thought, is he indicating that I was maybe doing something with a lady because I was in quite a nice hotel? and it didn't. I didn't realize until I processed it, and a few other people said it to me that was just their way of saying, you know, did you sleep well? Is everything okay?
Well, what was your answer, James?
Yeah, how was your night? No, the other one was when I came down to when I was in South Africa, and I came down to breakfast the first morning in the hotel, and the guy comes up to me to take my name and my room number. He said, "Would you like a crepe with your breakfast?" I had that in my room before I came down. How bizarre.
I've had a similar problem when I first moved down here from Broughty Ferry, and I used to, you're new, so you're meeting loads of new people, and I'd be like, "Oh, where'd you stay?" I'd be like, "In a house." I'm like, "No." I'm like, what? And it took me a while to correct my questioning to, "Where are you from?" Yeah, it's just little things like that can completely change a meaning to people who don't understand. So I always, remembered that, but it took me a few times to get it in my head that that's not what you ask people, because they think you're just daft.
It's not procurement related, but the toughest job I ever had was when I was a student. I was trying to sell mobile phones. And but the rather unique and flawed way that this company was doing it was through telesales. So I basically had a yellow pages book where I had to phone local businesses, phone them up. They'd answer the phone. I'd say, "Oh, hello, I'm so and so. Would you like to buy a phone?" And they would say 9 times out of 10, "I've already got one." I'm talking to you on it. So okay, well, thanks for your time. So that was a tough job.
Yeah, I used to cold call businesses by foot in Guildford. That was tough. Because by the time you get there, you're like hot and bothered, and you're like, "Do you want to buy some print?" It's like just bizarre.
Yeah.
But I also I did recruitment for a teeny tiny millisecond of my career, and the second place I worked, I was too loud, I was too friendly, I was too cheery, I was too nice on the phone. So she used to send me down to the basement to make calls. And then, it was the old fashioned phone. So if you're on the line, the light would like lit up, and she'd phone down, she's like, "You're not on the phone enough, you're not on the phone enough." I mean, I was so destroyed. I don't even know how I lasted like months there.
It sounds a nightmare.
Yeah, I just couldn't do anything right. But they're all the things that lead you to where you are now. So, and actually, what is procurement like as a career? Is that a good place to start your career? I mean, most people I know fell into it by accident. So
I think it's great, but I agree. Most people seem to it seems to be almost an accident that they get into it. But equally, a lot of people do then stay there for a long time. I've always liked it because it's basically commercial problem solving half of the time. So you're kind of going in and you tend to be the person. It depends the organisation, but you tend to be the person that different functions will go to say, look, we've got an issue here. What do we do? And I've always enjoyed that part of it because problem solving is fun. So
that's, I guess, do you think organisations then like SIPs and that do enough to promote the industry as an interesting and a good career choice? Is that something that's lacking? Because I guess I never really thought about procurement as a problem solving.
Yeah, I think it is, but I think it comes back to what we were talking about earlier. There's not really a single definition of what procurement is or what purchasing is. At least it's not a definition that everyone buys into in probably the same way that they would if you were talking about what is sales or what is finance. So I think that's part of the problem.
I think it's really interesting because commercial problem.
My favourite comment so far.
I once said to someone that works in comms, communications, I said to the guy, so how would you describe your job? And he said, rolling SHIT through glitter, which I thought was quite good. maybe procurement, something similar. But I think we could do a lot more to promote our profession. We don't have enough really good talent coming into the profession. There's still quite a lot of what I would call administrators in procurement who are running tender processes and paid a vast amount of money for doing a glorified admin process. We need the really exciting, bright, intelligent people, because if we don't get those people coming into the function, then the admin process that a lot of people have paid a lot of money to do will be automated and outsourced, a lot of it.
Yeah.
So it's all within our hands to resolve.
But I think there's some really exciting sides, to commercial problem solver stroke sorter of SH1T aside, a lot of it is driving innovation, and there's been some really, really exciting stuff going on, in terms of automation, AI as well, which, every day is a learning opportunity, and learning something new is really quite exciting, really, and stuff. And I think, as Dave said, we've got to drive the attractiveness of procurement and supply chain, because it's coming on leaps and bounds, and machine learning and AI will change it for the better. Absolutely.
Only with clean data, though.
One thing we absolutely all need is clean, classified data to make informed business decisions and choices on. I could absolutely 100% agree with you.
I didn't even pay you to say that.
So I have to head off now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I have to thank you so much for your time, guys. It's been a really great discussion. We should definitely do it again. Any final words, plugs for ProcMeet, ProcLive, Proctopus?
ProcMeet this coming Thursday, 5:00. ProcLive returns the next Thursday, 5:00.
The next Thursday, yeah, absolutely.
There's a bit of a theme emerging there. James, a podcast coming out in the next few days, I believe.
And we have Proctocast is our podcast, and that is released every second Tuesday. The next episode is out tomorrow with Peter Smith talking about bad buying.
Oh, fantastic! Look forward to that.
And we also have a fantastic announcement on the 1st of February as well about
Really?
something
Well,
new.
funny you should talk about that, because I wanted to just share with everyone before we go a couple of things that are happening. So, as well as you guys, next week I have Kate Strachney, who is like the queen of data visualization. She's got something like 140,000 followers on LinkedIn. I mean,
Wow.
she is a goddess. She's super smart and super funny. So she's going to be telling us about the Datacated conference, which I will be speaking at. So I'm very excited about that. But also, we talked about the 1st of Feb. I have an amazing, like, all-star lineup of fantastic procurement women from all over the world joining forces to talk about women in procurement. And we're going to talk about anything you like, the good, the bad, the ugly. So, and maybe drop a little announcement at the same time.
I think a little announcement would be great.
Yeah.
Maybe a new tentacle related to that topic, potentially, but who knows?
Yeah, could be. So yeah, stay tuned for all of these, and you can always catch up as well if you've missed it. So fear not. So thanks, guys. I will put you away one by one. Let you go and have your dinner, or look after the kids, or do whatever it is they're doing. You know, go and dream about procurement and selling things or buying things. I don't know. Thanks so much for joining today. It's been a really great conversation. I hope you've enjoyed it. If there's anything that you would like to see on Live from the Data Den, a topic or a person, make some suggestions. Things that I've got coming up as well as procurement and data are things like Valentine's week, learn how to love yourself. So let's talk about limiting beliefs and self-confidence and mental health. I'm going to hopefully get my solicitor on. We're going to talk about GDPR and information and storing that securely. I'm going to get my accountant on, talk about why do you need an accountant. I'm going to have loads of different types of guests. So if there's anything that you can think of, please make a suggestion, and I'll see what I can do. So in the meantime, it leaves me nothing but to say have a great week, and I will see you again next Monday.